Right, we are back. And the major is ongoing because actually one of the beautiful things about the modern day is you can actually even sometimes do content during the major. It's the day off, the lone day off. And after spending the first half of the day, like, where is the pick'ems? Where's the pick'ems? Where's Balbin? Where the pick'em? But anyway, they're here now, luckily, so that's all good. But the joke being, me and Pimp are two of the only people who still have pick'ems. Because I did see, even though, because I always put mine out late because I did the YouTube video or whatever, I never get put, I notice, in those like talent ones where they put all the people, you know. Even though there's people on there, I'm like, who the fuck is it? He barely even does CS. But whatever. The good news is it means I don't get embarrassed because I saw the most recent one, bro. There's more like 2 people got the pick 'em or something. Like almost everyone was just getting wrecked because most people got 0 3s and 0s and 0 3s. Most people didn't get those 4 immediately, so they were sort of fucked, it looks like. You got through though, right?
I got through, yeah. I got through. It was a tough one, but made it. 5 out of 10, I think.
Well, let's start there. How about this? Based on pre-tournament expectations, what was a big surprise for you? What are we coming straight out of the game with? What didn't you expect? What's been interesting in that sense?
I think it's kind of trendy right now. Like, first and foremost, I think the level of gameplay we've seen so far has just been... I don't know. I feel like it's been one of the worst stages of a major ever in terms of like the level of gameplay. I know. I think it was Sponge who went on, on the Agent TV Confirmed podcast and had a say about it, and I had to echo sentiment. I feel like all the games I've covered, like obviously there's been some nerve in them, there's been some tension. It's still a major, still close, but the level of gameplay is just atrocious, man. I feel like these teams are. If that's supposed to be like the major for them, if that's supposed to be their peak shape, and this is where they go all out, this is where they boot camp, this is where they come in and want to show the best face of themselves. I don't know what it is, if it's just starting nerves or if it's the pressure or whatnot, but it hasn't been looking great, to be completely honest. And then on top of that, just to follow up on that, I think Legacy to me has been one of the biggest disappointments, and one of the biggest surprises. I think they're a legit team. I think it's a team that could, had they shaken off the nerves and gotten into stage 2 and maybe played better teams as well, I think they would have made it to stage 3. Some people even had them as a playoff contender. I think that was a bit too much, but
sure.
I feel like that's a team, who you have this saying, where teams play to the level of the opposition, and I think Legacy did that in every single game. It was like the worse the team they played, the worse Legacy would play. And then against Paravision, obviously a game that easily could have gone both ways. Credit to Jim and the youngsters for pulling that through, but it just felt like if you turned up versus Legacy and you played piss poor Counter-Strike, then they would meet you with piss poor Counter-Strike, and vice versa. So that was a little bit disappointing. But overall, I don't know. It's been exciting to follow some of these storylines, and obviously the games, and FaZe struggling, the Fluxo game, you name it. There's been nerve to it, but the level of Counter-Strike has just been fucking hell, man. And speaking of FaZe, obviously, like they even boot camp coming into this event, they look worse now than they did before the boot camp.
Yes.
I guess the more they practice, the worse they get. It's a wild one, to be honest.
Right, on the first thing of like the level of the major, here's a weird counterintuitive take. I'm actually glad. Here's why. Because believe it or not, I actually think there's a very obvious reason why the major level was way lower, beyond just like what the teams did and how they prepared, which is VRS works. We've actually got it pretty good now, mate. Like, in general, it has put the better teams. If you go and look at stage 2 and then stage 1, it's done it right, mate. It's actually put the proper teams where they should be. That's why, actually, the real team, even though they qualified, that should absolutely be ashamed, is, you know what, FaZe? If you think everyone in the world's wrong, you must think VRS is wrong as well, but it wasn't. It was fucking right, mate. Because we all thought you should easily 3-0. Everyone in the universe had you 3-0, but you barely got out and against these teams. So, unfortunately, the real reason why the first stage sucks, bro, is because in the past, even sometimes, even when there was only 2 stages, famously, like Z1 Vitality used to be the first stage for a bunch of those majors. So you'd have like a world-class team in like stage 1, even though sometimes it meant the scuffed one was, like big or something to be in the next phase. We shouldn't probably even be there. So, and before it was more up and down, so it meant like the field was more like varied levels of teams. If you look at this one, there's a reason why a lot of people had Legacy and FaZe as their 3-0s. They looked and they were like, if you look at, in FaZe, it's more the quality of the players, what if they get it together. Legacy, as you say, it's just the recent results. You look at that and they should walk through that fucking group of teams and just 3-0 easily. But I know what you mean. Here's the problem, though. I do agree it was bad to watch, though. Like, I kept watching thinking, mate, if this wasn't called the Major, I'm an elitist, I'd tune out. You know what I mean? Like, I'd maybe watch the FaZe game or watch the Legacy game and watch, like, maybe I'd watch Nip because I'm like sort of a Snappy fan and stuff. But there's a bunch of games I would not have watched if this wasn't a major, mate. If you told me this was like those PGLs everyone laughs at, I might not watch that Swiss system game, you know. Some of these not only looked like not great matchups, they were crap in the game. And I know this is one area where knowing too much about the economics makes it hard for me to do the hot take. The hot take is just take stage one and rename it the major qualifier. Don't let it be the major. Like, I almost feel like you shouldn't be able to. You think of your day, Pimp. You have to be top 16 to get in the major.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's wild now that you can be some of these teams. I mean, the joke is, even though they made it through, everyone knows Paravision basically gamed VRS and beat. I think the only team they beat that anyone even knows is like Bait or something, mate, or like some Russian team at a LAN that no one even knows. That's like, they weren't actually supposed to be a top team. So to me, when you look at this particular opening thing, the one part about the industry that means I wouldn't say change it to stage one is, in theory, it is a positive that more teams get sticker money. That does help fund CS. That means even lower teams can afford to buy players. And like, by the way, that means people like the Reigns of the world. I'll tell you what, there's a question people might not think about. If there was no stage one of the major, maybe 100 Thieves wouldn't gamble and come into CS. Maybe OG wouldn't sign KD. And, you know, like, these are moves you can do when that many teams go. Like, you only have to, the beauty of it now, since we kind of know where we're at with VRS, is if you can get into top X, you can now just qualify. It's not like, right, that probably means some of the lands won't be good, so then it's all in for the RMR. No. So to me, it's more of a spiritual point of, I know what you mean. I just hate the idea. I'll give you an example, Pimp. You know how all these people like Pixel just watch like Valorant, like, wow, this is kind of cool. I would feel ashamed if someone from Valorant, who we've just told for like 5 years, your game is shit, CS is the shit, man. If they tuned into this, they'd be like, this isn't even that good. What the fuck? They said that team was good and they can't even beat Red Canids or something. Like, that's what it was like. Like, it was kind of a bit embarrassing, mate.
That's why I'm disappointed, because I get your point and I agree. VRS did it well, you know, and I think VRS, you know, with time and
it gets better, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is, you know, and it's gonna work fine, and it's gonna work fine for Cologne. It's gonna work fine for the upcoming majors as well. Yes. It's just I think exactly that is why I'm disappointed, because you're right, you know, it should secure, you know, a better foundation for a lot of these teams. Should make sure, you know, that the top 15 to top 32, they should be more competitive. They should be better. They should have the finances to actually go sign, you know, young talents and decent players, which is why we came into the stage. And I'm like, I don't know, man. It's just I agree with you. It's not like there wasn't any entertainment value in watching some of those games, because they had nerve. They still had that major feeling. You could definitely feel, you know, and I guess sometimes that can be tough from a viewer at home as well, you know, especially when there's no crowd, you know, to feel the nerve from the players and the excitement. You could definitely, when you walk around in the building, you know, and cover the games, you can feel that it matters a lot to all teams and all players, and some of them crumble under the pressure, or some of them, you know, perhaps are not performing well enough or living up to the pressure. But it's the raw level of Counter-Strike. It's almost like if you removed, as you said, the nameplates and you just watch the game for what they are and the quality of the CS that is being played. I think it's disappointing. I think it's disappointing that, you know, the top 24 to top 32 is not in a better state right now, because it's been quite evident that the way to get to the major is by grinding a lot of VRS tournaments. It's by playing an awful lot of games. It's by actually being a decent team. Paravision is a great example. I don't think they've beat a single top 20 team coming into the major, and now they've beaten one or two, you know, GamerLegion and they beat Legacy yesterday, of course. But up until that point, you know, they were a team that never beat a top 20 team, but they were still supposed to play better than they did in the opening stage, and they didn't. So I don't know if that's going to change for Cologne. Like, I would expect stage one to be more competitive, and I would expect, you know, 100 Thieves is a great example. Maybe they're going to be one of the teams who are just about grinding themselves in the VRS and entering stage one. FaZe, if they continue to suck, they'll probably be there again, you know. But I don't know. I just expected more, you know, from a sole Counter-Strike quality perspective. I've been a little bit disappointed, and I don't know. It's been one of those where I was like, I really hope it gets better for stage two, because it's not good enough.
On the topic of legacy, I know what you mean. The real problem with this is, because I said a similar thing on another show, I really do think, because of those two finals and that one trophy, I think some fans thought they could fuck around and make top 8, mate. Look, I don't think even their fans would say they're going to go semis or with, but I think some of them really thought, maybe this means they can do it. But all I'll say is this, that's a bit like the Paravision level, but on a higher level. Just go look at who they beat, though, guys. First of all, those two tournaments had the odd good team in. They didn't play player, mate. Like, if you ever look, by the way, they lost to Team Liquid all the time. Their best result is if you go ages back at Pro League, they beat Fury in that inexplicable loss after Fury got really good. That was the one tournament Fury did bad at. Aside from that, their best wins for real are like Astralis. Like I say, they're losing to Liquid every time. And here's the other thing I think also made people overrate them. Because Saw did that, Saw. Because Aurora started choking their tits off in that final, it just made Legacy look better than they are. You know what I mean? Like, it made them look, holy fuck, they could have won this event too. They could have gone back to back. Because I feel like people almost wanted to tie the two stories of Furia's rise with Legacy's rise. It's a Brazilian era. It's like, Nate, Furia was winning the best events in the world against the literally fucking Falcons and Vitality. If Legacy had done that, I would give them mad props. But I think if you look who they beat, look, on paper, they still should have got through this stage. You could even say, like you said, debatably, if they get the right opponents in the next stage, they could get through that too. I'd still probably have them 3-2 or 3-1, you know. I think they would have got cooked in stage 3 and forget the playoffs. Like, that's just, you're going too far. And by the way, that's not to hate on them. Remember, last major, they weren't even supposed to be there. And they turned up, they got the win over Vitality. That sort of piqued our interest. And when you do look at their team, look, it's easy at the end of the tournament to go, especially because of the way that last map went. Like, that looks guy shit the bed. He had a hard fucking time. Then there's some guy who was questionable here and there. But I think, first of all, mate, the Lato guy, he actually, this is one thing I like about the majors. People now who weren't watching his game will know he's a fucking good player, mate. Like, if it wasn't for the fact Fury's an international team, I would say, just like I did with Insanity, you should be next on the block, mate. You should be the next one to join that team. You look fucking good. You look like you're ready to actually like play in the later stages of the major.
Yeah, 100%, 100%, and that's the puzzling part with Legacy. I even had I can't remember, maybe it was Devil Walker, maybe it was Ted. You know, I shared a segment and we like spoke about expectations, and I think one of them at least had them to make the playoff. You know, as a playoff contender, and I get where they're coming from, because obviously it did look decent in the tournament placings, but as I said, like if you look at who they beat and how they beat them. Let's be honest, you know, they're never supposed to be a top 8 team in the world, not with the current player material, not with the current meta, and not when the teams are showing up in what's hopefully a good shape for the major. So I was never really putting them in there, but I had them as a team that probably should make stage 3, as you said, like 3-1, 3-2 in that regard. And I also very much agree, you know, that, and I guess that's a topic we can have, because I feel like that ties into another disappointment. Like when you miss players like Lado or Dumao for that matter as well, even Satsin, you know, who's been a little bit underwhelming, had a fantastic showing versus Paravision, where they don't make it to stage 2, I feel like that's where you're missing out as well. I don't necessarily care too much about the team legacy. I don't care too much about, you know, Fluxo as a team or Energy as a team, but there's certain prospects when in all those teams where you think to yourself, ooh, it would be nice to see Sodic, you know, play the AWP in stage 2. It would be nice to see Lado, you know, go toe-to-toe against some of the better teams out there. And I think the same could be said for the second runner-up, you know, to be the most disappointing team so far at the major, which is GamerLegion. I feel like that's a team, you know, where
absolutely
you look at PR, you look at...
There's another player you want to see in stage 2, absolutely, yeah.
Exactly, you want to see him play in stage 2. I don't necessarily care if GamerLegion is there, I just want to see PR, because I feel like he's also ready, you know, for the next stage. He's also ready to play in a stage 2 or ready to play in a stage 3, and I want to see how he handles that, you know, when he's supposed to make the difference from a better team. But that whole GamerLegion conversation, I had them as my 3-0 as well. It was that was a gamble, you know, in a sense. But I feel like 3-0 was possible. 3-1 should be expected from them. They've been around for a long time now with this roster, and they have had so many tier 1 experiences, you know, going to the Colognes of the world, going to the big tournaments, participating in the Blast circuit as well from time to time, and they've just been disappointing very much as of late. They can't really figure it out, and it's gotten to a point now where I feel like now you ship off those players, like you save PR from that madness, you bring him somewhere else, you send him to, I don't know, G2, or send him to FaZe for that matter as well, or send him somewhere, you know, where he can go in and take the next step, because I kind of start losing faith in GamerLegion and that this current iteration of this lineup working out. You know, they've had their time, they've been piquing my interest, they've been like, oh, maybe if they get it together, they could be a team in stage 3, maybe they could win a game in stage 3, but what they showed here at the major was just another disappointing result where there's no excuses anymore. They have the experience, they've had enough tries, they've had enough tournaments to show that they're actually a legit team, and they haven't been able to find a replacement on the up role. Not that Hypix, you know, necessarily was doing too bad in this tournament, but just not a difference maker. And it just feels like a team where all the players, you know, they know they're playing in Ajax, they know they're playing in a Pharma team, and they know they want to go somewhere else, CTR for that matter as well. And when you're not winning as a team, you know, you start losing faith in the team winning stuff, and by then showcasing yourself, then you got to make the move, right? You got to get out of there before it becomes a team that doesn't even make the major, which could be the case for the next one. And to me, it's a disappointing way to go out for GamerLegion, because I think they're going to have a tough time to rebuild that lineup, especially if they do lose PR or House for that matter as well, or CTR, who individually speaking, have done a decent job at certain tournaments.
No, the saddest thing as well about GamerLegion is, and this is going to be a recurring trend in Ash's career as long as he stays in GamerLegion. It's why, unfortunately, when he signed with GamerLegion again, they almost hyped it like they were going to announce he was leaving, and everyone thought, fuck, is he getting like the Team Liquid job or G2 or something? The real bomber is, he's about to experience what all the fucking IGLs that were trapped in the old national system used to have. If you find a good player, mate, they won't be your player for very long. Eventually, they'll just be taken by the other teams because you've scouted them for them and they've got more money and they're a better team. And as you say, as soon as you lose, the player's going to want to leave. He doesn't want to stay. Listen, he might be loyal to you, but he's not loyal to this org and whatever they pay him. Like, he wants 25k. If you're someone like PR, I'm sorry, you absolutely should be thinking, mate, I should be on Team Liquid or G2 or FaZe. Like, why aren't I good? Aren't I better than this guy or this guy? And also, I want the money of FaZe. I want to play in playoffs and I want to be in the stage 3 and get the best sticker and all that. That's totally human thing to think. But here's the bomber if you're Ash. I want to name these 3 players. Bro, PR, he wasn't even on it. No one mentioned this guy before he joined this team. Once he joined, it's obvious he's good now. Rez was literally, people were ready to put him like we're in, like maybe it's time you retire, mate, or, go off and become the support player or something. He resurrected him in season 1. He hasn't played as well since, but he was mega at the beginning of the year. And then the one that's a miracle to me is the Towson pickup, mate. I saw that ecstatic team. They were a team that would have gone out in stage 1 of these majors. They were like, all right. And if anything, by the way, the player on that team you watch is the Syrah guy. Like, he looked pretty cracked. Oh, this guy's pretty fucking good. No one was telling me, this Towson guy, you've got to sign him. So I actually think that's 3 players there you've sort of found. You put them together, there's something working there. But as you've seen, the problem is, they've never cracked that AWP issue, mate. That AWP issue has haunted them so badly. Yep. It's even nowhere. This is where people are dirty as fucking our industry. I saw that Slend, who got kicked, did that tweet like, still having problems at the AWP position. I looked up his last games in GamerLegion. Bro, his last 3 games, he had like 6 frags per map or something. It's like, motherfucker, just because they suck with the AWP now doesn't mean you were good. That's not how that works. By the way, I'll give you, since I love to do the football analogies, it's one thing I would say to all of our fellow Liverpool fans. Bro, they're idiots. They do this thing now where they go, fucking Isak doesn't score. Why did we get rid of Darwin Nunez? I'm like, brother, that wasn't the answer. Like, I agree the Isak guy should score, but there's a good reason we got rid of Darwin Nunez. He used to miss the open fucking goal and score like 4 goals a season. What are you talking about? Like, you're doing that thing where one has to be good and one has to be, maybe both are just bad. You know what I mean? Maybe neither were a great selection. I agree Slend was better than Kersey or whatever, but they've all been pretty bad, mate. They've all had their issues. That's why, unfortunately, they've all got caught. But the real problem is this, Pimp. If you're GamerLegion, if you're a fan, please think of this like football. Because again, if you're like Burnley or fucking something like that, you can't sign the top player. You can't say, hey, we should bring like Jamie Vardy back from... He wouldn't come, mate. So my analogy here would be, I know we all, for every opposition, go, what about Dexter? That wasn't even an option for GamerLegion. They couldn't buy him out. He probably wouldn't join. I don't, people have to understand the scale that they're playing on in GamerLegion.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? And that's why I'm so worried, because I feel like, as you said, like Rez is a great example. Like you kind of brought him back to life, but that's an abnormality. Like that's not normal.
Absolutely, yes.
Most players, who's had such a long career and been at the level he's been at, like you don't get a second chance.
Bro, that's like a miracle. You can't just do that over and over again. I'm amazed they did it once.
Yeah, exactly. And imagine just another end of it. Like imagine if they brought back the S-Attack or whatever, like there's no way that's going to work out, So I agree, like GamerLegion they're very limited in who they can attract, and it also depends on who they can keep, right? If obviously
yes, absolutely.
Ash has a certain attraction power, being the coach he is, because he's shown before that he can take a player like PR and make him great, CTR for that matter as well. But imagine a world where someone comes knocking for CTR. There's a severe lack of in-game leaders right now, on some of the better teams. He could be a potential candidate to not necessarily take a big step up, but maybe a small step or side step or whatever. And I think PR is, I think he's ready. I think he didn't play well here at the Major, right? And I don't think he's been playing as well as we've seen as of recently. Like I think it was Towson who came into this tournament being the highest rated player within GamerLegion. That's not supposed to be the case. That is supposed to be PR. But I think you get to a point where you've been carrying for such a long time, and as you said, like now that you're losing, it's hard to stay motivated within that team. I think PR is well aware that he's going somewhere else at some point. But if you're then a young prospect looking at GamerLegion, imagine them with no CTR, imagine them with no PR. Like, is that team attractive? Like, you want to be teammates with Hypix and Towson? Like, that could be any team out there. So
Yeah.
I really fear GamerLegion. Not only did they, and that's maybe a way to think about it, right? For Legacy, I don't expect much to change. It's still a great team. They're still going to do fine. They're most likely going to keep at least 4 of the players, and they'll be fine for next season, no doubt about it. For GamerLegion, it was way worse for them to go out here at the major. Had they made it to stage 2, it would have been much easier to attract new talent. It would have been much easier to make the case that you can let go of PR, let go of CTR, we'll find someone else. But for them to go out at the major in this fashion, for them to basically bottle the last 3 tournaments they played, that's just going to make that whole revamp of the roster that's going to happen in 2026 so much harder. So it's almost a bigger disaster for GamerLegion to lose in stage 1 than it was for Legacy. Obviously, expectations weren't the same, but they'll be fine. Where for GamerLegion, they could look into a future where they're fucked more or less, or where Ash is like, what am I supposed to do? Like, who can I sign? Who wants to join? And what can we kind of expect for the future? So I don't know. To me, GamerLegion is probably the more I think about it, the most disappointing one, and probably the team, that next to FaZe would have been in the biggest issues had they gone out of stage 1. Fucking FaZe, man. Like,
let's do it. Here's the thing. Let's transition to that because I have a topic about FaZe I want to talk about. Okay. Right? I do want to talk about the Brokey topic, but I don't want to do it in the most obvious way. So here's what I want to say. First of all, I'll say this as a joke, but there's almost truth in it, like the grain of truth that's in most jokes. The joke is, at this point in time, an appropriate team for Brokey would be like GamerLegion, like OG or something like. Reinvent yourself, mate. Prove you're good still. Because one thing I can't handle is this, Pimp. I understand if you just look and read between the lines of what they're saying in FaZe, it doesn't look like they have loads of money. I mean, as we've talked about in the past, it looks like the only reason they got Twists is he really wanted to go back there. He didn't like what was going on in Team Liquid. And there was some sort of either a contract swap or like maybe one person paid a little bit of money. But it looks like that was one of those scenarios where we both have a player that's good. You want ours, we want yours. You can trade it. I don't get the vibe, quite frankly, that they actually will pay a big buyout for anyone. I even think that's a little bit of the Simple thing. Because if you ever saw the way they talked about Simple, every single message they put on their vlogs, social media, up through the major was almost like, we're desperate to sign this guy. Of course we want this guy. Yes, he's the future. This is awesome. All the stuff at the major was like, it's going great and it's so fun to play them. It's only once, basically, it's implied behind the scenes, they maybe inquired about the buyout and find out like, oh, it's like 500k or something. They were like, oh, yeah, actually, it wasn't working with him. And, in practice, he can be a bit... by the way, all the shit everyone knows anyway. Or maybe he didn't get on with people. Or, hey, you didn't play that well in the Mongols game. I think it was all corporate. So my problem is, I get the sense behind the scenes. It's not FaZe of old where, like, they could have signed... Remember back in the day, they used to sign Nikos and fucking giant names, the biggest names in the world. I get the vibe now. They're more limited themselves on who they can choose. But one thing that is killing me, Pimp, is... they're doing this thing with Brokey where it's like they're so desperate for everyone else in the world to be wrong. You know what I mean? It's not that they actually know he's really good still and it's secretly in there, but they're almost making it like we're just hating on him and we're just choosing to think he sucks. And they're doing that thing I hate when pros do where you're too loyal. Like, it's one thing to personally be loyal to him. Look, if I was on the team and I was Carrigan or Twister, I'd privately be going, look, I support you, mate. Like, we're going to stick with you. We'll do what we can. But I wouldn't ever make it sound like, people are exaggerating or he's almost going to get it back together, guys, next week. Like, I would probably even just stay away from that topic. I'd focus it on things like, well, I didn't call a great game or, we could have done things. But I'd do that like euphemism thing where you talk around the topic. Because one thing I find really awkward is, mate, this isn't just like he didn't play well. Sometimes he's like, for real, if Twists and Frozen didn't actually go ape shit in some of these games, FaZe would have been out of the major, Pimp. Like, everyone I know had them 3-0. They would have literally been out. They could have even lost to Redkin Innsbruck. That was real.
They should have. They should have. Like, Frozen on Nuke, in that game, like, he had one of his... Yeah, like probably one of his best performances, honestly, ever in a FaZe jersey. I think he averaged I think he had a rating of 196, over the course of double overtime, which is fucking ridiculous. And Kerrigan defusing the bomb at
0.4 seconds or something. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Like it doesn't have to come down to that. And there was even a case to be made that whoever tried to defuse that bomb just should have taken one more step forward before he started defusing.
And I think they said he had a smoke as well, so he could have even done that
exactly.
too.
It's like it's crazy. So FaZe should have been out, and they deserve to be out. Even against Fluxo, you're not fucking supposed to go down 10-4 on third deciding map versus Fluxo. Like, yes. I don't even at that point. I don't even care if you're coming back. I don't like. Yes, of course you won and you got the job done. And honestly, like, between us and everyone watching this fucking video, I'm so tired of it. Like, I'm so tired of having to pretend. And I even did it in my pick'ems. I even put FaZe to make it through stage 3 in my fucking pick'ems, and I fucking hate that I have to do that because that's still the reality. They have they have frozen. They have twist, and yeah, you're right. Like Brokey has been a shadow of himself. Like no, actually, Brokey has been the Brokey they kicked the first time
He
around. Like,
was,
maybe even
yeah.
slightly worse. Yeah,
Yeah.
slightly worse, and that's not great. You know, Kerrigan is never going to be a fragger, and Jacob is just
Yes.
a bystander in this whole project. Like it's not his fault, but he's not doing anything good.
I have a
It's
question
just
for you on
whatever.
the Jacob one. Let me flip it to that. Because one
Okay.
thing I do, people think I only read comments to like be mean and go, what an idiot, what a player, or whatever. But I actually also do use it as like feedback. Because I always think to myself, when I make a video, that's like a way of figuring out what else should I talk about? What else should I address? Like, I'll see what people are thinking. So I have like, my finger on the pulse of the community. And one of the takes, because you'll know this, you can imagine which group of people support Jacob. Spoiler, they have a red and white flag. All the Polish people ride so hard for him. You'd think it was like the Brazilians with the Brazilians. They just automatically, he has to be good because he's Polish. And if you think not, logically, you hate Polish people, which will always frazzle my brain. Because, mate, in 1.6, it was even known that a lot of people thought Forrest was the greatest, or people at, Spawn. I was always an EO fanboy, mate. I always thought he was just the most cracked player ever. So the idea I'm like a Polish hater is not even vaguely accurate. I even like some of the players in CS2 that aren't even that good, like the Hades of the world, etc. There's a few I kind of like fuck with. Shooty, there's a few I fuck with. My problem with the whole Jacob topic is all the Polish fans say this, Pimp. They go, but they've put him in all his wrong roles. He's like semi-lurking sometimes. He's supposed to be the aggressive rifler. Bro, listen to yourself. That's Twist's fucking role in that team. Like, logically, what you're saying is inadvertently, you agree with us. He shouldn't be on this team. He should be on a team where he can play his roles. Because I'm sorry, I don't know about you, but surely if that's what they claim his roles are, he's never going to get them on FaZe. Surely they kind of did make him the rain replacement, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a great point. Because that's exactly the issue with it. Like it's Jacob. It's not his fault. As I said, like I think I tweeted it as well, where I blame whoever made the decision, and I'm super annoyed from the fact that we don't know. Like we don't know if it's Kerrigan or if it's the organization. The more I sense, the more I hear is that FaZe have actually, as an organization, taken over a bit more. So it's not Kerrigan who gets to pick and choose. And I'm not even sure if the players wanted to get rid of Rain or if that was more so a FaZe thing for whatever reason.
Yep.
Which obviously was also a fucking joke considering how bad it's going right now. But I don't blame Jacob. But Jacob is never supposed to be signed to be an aggressive rifler in FaZe. Like, what the fuck has he ever shown that makes you say that maybe he should have a chance, to be the star player within FaZe Clan? No, and that's how it goes for some players. Sometimes you're signing a prospect and then you put him in a difficult role and you see, okay, is he cut for it? Can he be decent at a difficult role? And if he can, then maybe he earns his stars and stripe within the team. And when Twist then leaves, or when someone else leaves,
Pimp,
makes space
I'll tell you an example from your career. I think this is what MSL used to do with talents in the Danish scene. He would make you wait your turn. If you were like Kirby or Config, I'm sorry, he had AZ first. You don't get to have that role. Now look, if when AZ leaves, you proved yourself and I can trust you, you get your shot. And by the way, all three of those people made it and they all actually went up in the scene and had great careers because of this. But I know what you mean. Like, that excuse works a bit. Like, maybe he doesn't look his best, but I know what you mean. He has to show me something at this role. Then I'll consider maybe he has something else, right?
Yeah, exactly. It works in isolation. Like, it works if you say, like, he's performing bad right now, then yeah, sure. But if he was good enough to be a potential star aggressive rifler for FaZe, he'd do better. Like, he'd do better than he is right now. And I don't care, like, I also come from a different era of Counter-Strike back, as you said, like with MSL. Like, roles is something, obviously, we talked about and care about, but roles are also, in modern day and age, Counter-Strike fucking overrated. Like, it's crazy. Like, it's almost like when you have a certain role, that's the only thing you can do.
Yes.
That's the only thing you're supposed to do. Like, you're not supposed to do anything else than your role. It's like, that's not how Counter-Strike works, because every round is living its own life, and sometimes your fucking entry fragger dies in the beginning of the round, funnily enough, and then someone else has to be the entry fragger, So it's not like Counter-Strike is that defined, and it's so annoying in that regard. So yeah, I don't blame Jacob. I don't blame anyone, basically. I want to be able to point fingers towards someone, because if Kerrigan came out and said, this is my decision, like if he took ownership of bringing in Jacob, first and foremost, I would respect Kerrigan for doing that, but it would also make it easier for me to be, okay, mate, this was probably not your best decision. Just like when we're talking about Ash, bringing in fucking Kirby and bringing in Hypix and whatnot, or Slint, can't really figure out their op problem. Maybe that's not his best signing, and that's fair enough. You make a mistake and you brought in a kid and you didn't make it work out. But the fact is that I don't know who the fuck made that decision. Is it the FaZe management? Is it Kerrigan? Was it some of the players? I've even heard, that Twist thought that he was going to join FaZe and Rain was still going to play, that it was a big surprise to him that Rain was on his way out, that he didn't even know Jacob was going to be part of the lineup, that he said yes to join, and if that's the case, then that's poor management. That's not how you sign a guy like Twist and basically, blindfold him a little bit, and all of a sudden, by the way, Jacob is your teammate now. And that's not to say anything bad about Jacob. That's just, not how you run a team at this level, which is why I think they're struggling. I think the team right now is just not, like, they know this is not going to be the lineup. They know that this is not going to be the 5-man roster. So even if you did have a boot camp leading into the major, even if you are like trying your hardest when you're on the server, of course they are, because what else would they be doing? It's not like they're waiting to be knocked out and then go home. Obviously now they're here, they took the flight, they're staying at the hotel, they're practicing, they may as well try their best. But I think subconsciously in the back of their mind, they know that this is not going to be the roster. So when you do practice and when you do have a boot camp, you're maybe only 90% focused. If you're Twist, like, you're taking extra liberties. So if you're Frozen, you're like, fuck, man, if I don't carry this game, I'm not going to win. So I'm just going to go all in, and maybe overdo it. Whereas when you have a team that's actually in synergy and in harmony and believe that that is the team they're going to fight together with, maybe for the next 6 months, then you reach a different level of Counter-Strike. So one thing is looking at Brokey, looking at Jacob, obviously certain individuals not stepping up, but I think all the players are just well aware that this is just, we're just together until we're out of the tournament, and then we'll figure stuff out. And that's never going to be, like, that's never going to be a winning formula. And I know it happened with Envios back in the Cluj Poker Major, but that was like a different time, different scene, and a different way you play Counter-Strike. You could get away with playing a puck style and win a major. You cannot do that today. Like, it's too complicated, and basically the teams are too good to get off with that.
And you need to have fucking Kenny S. You know what I mean? You need to have some guy who's a straight banger who's going to carry the tournament.
Is good, but he's no Kenny S.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah.
No, by the way, one of the things you're saying, I even think that thinking has infected football, bro. Because every fan now knows the positions, which now we just call by the numbers, like the 10 and the 6. And people have obsessed too much about it. And then what they do is they do the exact same complaint, Pimp. They'll take the logic that, look, I agree, most players have a position they're the best at. But if you can only play one position, you probably actually aren't that great a player, by the way. Because I can tell you in football, like, that's most players that could only play one role. That's probably like a bench player, mate. Like, if you think of any great any top 6 team, I mean, put it this way, my favourite player, obviously back in the day, was Stevie G, Steven Gerrard for Liverpool. Mate, he could play the midfield, he could play the 10. There was times at the end of his career he played the fucking defender, mate. He was like a fullback almost. Like, the point is, he did whatever needed to be done. Or if this is the key point, Jacob, if someone else was doing his role but better than him, then he slotted in where he needed to be and did something within the squad. Because I know what you mean. The idea that, like, everything can't be excused by he doesn't have his role, because there's a lot of great players who actually don't have their perfect role in CS. I'd even say, didn't we give mad props in the last episode to Yuri? He used to be the number 2 option on Furia. Now he is, unironically, probably number 4, and it's only because Fallen doesn't even use an AWP anymore that he's even gets in any space. But every now and then, he will overperform and top frag a fucking map. That's what we want to see. That's what I want from Jacob if you want to be in FaZe.
Yeah, and that's I think it's an excellent point, because it also reminds me of, it's this notion from the community that like nobody grows up wanting to be a supportive element. Nobody grows up, wanting to be the anchor player or wanting to be the supportive element of a team. Like, take Supnix as an example. Like, when he started out playing CSGO, he was sort of like the second star within Fnatic, like that first iteration of Fnatic, and then he quickly realized that, okay, if he has to find a place within Astralis, it's going to be in this role. And then he took upon that role and he made himself arguably the greatest at the role, and that's what we're talking about. If Jacob was as good as, the polls wants him to make him, then he would take upon that role and he would make it his own. Bit is a great example as well. In Navi, like, he's literally made a very difficult and a very boring role sexy, in a sense. Robs could be like, there's definitely players who can do that because they're good enough at doing that. But it's also like, from a community standpoint, like, nobody plays Counter-Strike to be the supportive element. Like, if you're Jacob, like, take Jacob for an example in FaZe Clan, when he's playing pucks, he's not playing supportive roles. He's not like waiting for someone to come to him. Of course he's running around because he's significantly better than everyone else, but he's not significantly better than the counter opposition he's playing at a pro level, and that's where the difference is made. And you can even say that about players like Supnix, players like Dupree to some degree as well. When he moved into a more supportive role within Vitality, obviously that was never what he wanted to do. He's always been hyper aggressive. He's been the star of his team, but that's kind of what he had to do. And let's be honest, Dupree, he did a pretty good job in that role.
Let's be real. If he'd have kept trying his old role that he began when he first joined Vitality, they wouldn't have won that major, mate. Like he had to find that little more limited, but he could still contribute role.
Exactly. Yeah. Someone else would have been able to do his role better. So you'd just be kicked. You wouldn't even be a part of the lineup. And that's also what, as far as I understood it back then, Sonic said to him, like, you have to play this role and you have to make sure that you're good enough at it. Otherwise, we can't have you. Like Flamesy or whoever came in afterwards, he's a different player. And even at that time, before they bought Flamesy, then someone else would have come in and play instead of Dupree if he couldn't figure it out. So it's a weird notion. And that's what I hate about roles, when we discuss roles and we dive into stats with roles, etc. Like it almost takes away the fact that a skill in Counter-Strike is to be versatile.
Absolutely.
Some players are not versatile, and that's fair enough. Not all players can be versatile, but those who are, they're great. And I think that's, take Elise as an example, ex-FaZe player. I think that's one of his biggest weaknesses, the fact that he's not too versatile. Whenever things around him are not working smoothly, whenever he's not aware what teammates are doing, he kind of drops off a cliff, like compared to where he's supposed to be at.
Sure.
Because he's not, comfortable in an environment like that. And if he were, he'd be one of the best players in the world. Simple as that, because he would be able to perform at an elite level at all times. A guy like Trist, direct opposite. I feel like Trist sometimes thrives when there's chaos. He thrives in this FaZe clan, playing some of the best Counter-Strike he's played in the last couple of years when everything is going to shit. And that is a sign of a quality within Trist, that he's not dependent on a homogeneous or a functional team. Like he can step up regardless, Obviously, you'd love to play within a team that is a bit more homogeneous and does better. But it's almost taking away the fact that when we try to clear define all these different roles, we take away the fact that, yes, being versatile is actually a skill as a player. And sometimes coaches would look into that, because as you said, if you're FaZe, well, you don't need a player to replace Trist in an aggressive role. You need someone to occupy Jacob's role. Do we think that this aggressive player could maybe transform into this player and become that player? Like Jimfat did in Mouse, as an example. So I feel like there's always this discussion about roles, and it always, that's a nuance that just goes missing, and it's hella annoying, because it just downplays and downvalues what makes a good Counter-Strike player, which is also why actually, and I know you hate this, but I love the fact that we have best of ones still. Not necessarily saying I would prefer best of ones over best of threes in a major, but come in here and show that you can play a best of one. You want to win a major, you got to be versatile. You got to be able to, compete in a best of one scenario. You got to be able to win your best of ones and get to the best of threes and then win those, So that's like the cynic in me that, I would love to see best of three throughout the entire major. But in all honesty, you want to win a major? You want to lift the world champion? Then show me you're versatile. You got to be in a best of one. You got to win a best of three, and you got to win a best of five now in the grand final. I think that's a way of quantifying a team as well. Not putting them in a certain role that, Vitality is the best team in the world at playing best of threes, but they fucking suck in best of ones. That would be a liability if that was the case, And
true.
I think that's only fair to expose it.
True. And I'll also just say that's one area we do ignore because we all agree best of threes are better. When you look at a team like Vitality, they only played one, but when they lost that, well, they played two after that. But when you lost that BO1, you might go, well, who doesn't care? That doesn't count. Well, I'll tell you what, if you're doing Vitality versus the greatest teams of all time, I think the first 5 years of CS was all BO1, mate. Like the tournaments were BO1 double limb. So back then, people like Heaton and Potty, those Hall of Famers, they couldn't fuck up on a map, mate. They had 2 maps to lose and they're out of the tournament. And they didn't even have the veto back then, mate. The round of the tournament you're in decided what the map was. So if you got to the final, by the way, and the other team's best maps does too, and the finals does too, you have to now beat them on their best map. Like, there's no veto, like we ban your map. So actually, there's many things we do in the modern day that while they increase, the complexity and maybe the level of the game, I know what you mean. If you want to be great and you want to be thought of as a legend at the majors, you'd be tested. I know what you mean. When you phrase it like that, it's actually a better sell. That you have to sort of prove it across all 3 domains. You have to do it in the BO1, you have to do it in the BO3, and then now we've got the BO5 waiting to stop you lifting the trophy if you can't do it. So there even are teams who have won majors, I can tell you, who they would have never made it through the BO5. They wouldn't have the map pool for it. The other team, if they steal one map from you, you'd be fucked. So I know what you mean on that angle. Now then, Pimp, what shall I do this segue? Obviously, predicting what's going to happen is really hard in CS because we do have BO1s, we do have the stage one where the levels are up and down. But one of the good things in life is you don't always have to pick every single question to answer. You can wait for the right angle. And that's where today's sponsor, Kalshi, comes in, because what they have is they are the only federally approved prediction event market company, where what they basically do is you trade a contract in a market. So before that sounds too complicated, I'll basically explain it. It'll ask a question like, and there's a question I'm going to answer. They have, for example, will one of these two teams win the Budapest Major? They've got Furia and they've got Falcons. And Furia is at 24% and Falcons is at 21%. And what that means is you're just picking yes or no. You don't have to pick one of the two even. Those are just the two options. They're the two markets they're offering. And basically, what that means is when it says 24%, that means people think there's 24% likelihood. So if you buy into that market, you buy in at 28 cents on this particular one for yes, right? Now, two things to explain there. First of all, it's easy. You're just doing yes or no. There's no like number or some other, and all you're doing is you're trying to pick the right thing to happen. You're trying to predict using the market. And also, by the way, you can look at it as a way of seeing what other people are trading. Therefore, you can see what the sentiment is in the community, who thinks that. Also, this is the only company that can trade in all 50 states in the US, etc. So I'll give you an example. Even though Fury at 24%, that might sound low. That's against the whole field, though. 24% against the whole field before stage 2 starts is actually very high. So I will say, for example, it's classic Thorin fashion, I would pick no on that. It isn't hating on Fury, it's just saying I think it's way more likely they don't win the majors. I would actually pick no on that one. And by the way, all I would need is any of the other teams in the tournament to win the major, and I would have correctly gotten the trade there, and I would be able to profit as a result of it. So famously, they say that prediction markets supposedly are actually more accurate than polls, because polls are just your opinion. And as people do in politics, you can just lie. You can just say what you think's popular or what you should say. Prediction markets are, where are you actually putting your money? What are you picking? What are you saying yes or no to? What trade do you want to do? So if you want to get in on the action, and maybe you want to pick the winner of the Budapest Major, or you want to go to any of the, maybe you want to say, is Ziwu the MVP of the Major? Similar thing for that against the field. He's obviously an underdog, but maybe you are certain he's going to do it. By the way, that's even a better one, because he could make the final with the MVP, Ziwu. So they've got all these markets. They've got all the games at the beginning of this first round of the stage 2. What you do is you go to kalshi.com/LFN. It's on the screen as the promo code. And if you trade $100 worth, they will give you a $10 promo. So obviously, I've mainly done Counter-Strike. By the way, they also have other esports. They even have things, by the way, like ESL Impact, etc. And they have they have all sorts of crazy ones that you can pick stuff, by the way, that's not even to do with esports. Like, will inflation be above a certain percent in a few months from now? They offer markets like that. Will Bitcoin go to a certain number? They have all sorts of really interesting ones. So it doesn't have to be esports, you know. But I'm assuming people watching the show are into esports and into CS. So check out kalshi.com/LFN. Trade $100, you get $10 to play with as the promo, and see how you do. See what you pick, let us know. Right, Pimp, I think now I have to ask you this question, because another thing I was saying about the VRS, I've even looked into this, is if you go and you look on the stages, it actually has done a really good job, mate. Like, the joke is, you go and look, it's why actually, when everyone does the pick'ems, it's actually quite obvious who the 3-0 team should be on paper. It's just whether or not you're going to gamble on that, or whether you think they'll fuck up and lose a game, etc. So obviously in this next stage, the big dogs, it's our classic fucking tormented, flawed squads. It's Aurora, the ones that should be at the top, but do they do it? It's Na'Vi. Probably no one believes in them now, but I tell you what, actually the flaw not that bad. So Team Liquid, I feel like Team Liquid, by the way, is the analyst's curse, because you look at those names, you think of what could be, and it's so easy, no matter what the results they have in the game, to just go, they should be better though. They should win this game. So I want to ask in this second, we're not doing a pick-em now, but I want to get the sense of, like, do you have a sense of a team? It's one of those one that you actually think will perform. Is there someone you think will underperform in this stage? What do you think of Pimp?
Yeah, I think I think neither of the 3-0 teams from stage 1 will make it through, and I think that's a testament to what we spoke about before. You know, that the level of Counter-Strike wasn't that high. FlyQuest did well, obviously. M80 did well, but I think it's a different level of competition. So I don't see any of them making it. You brought Liquid. You know, I actually have Liquid in my 3-0 spot as a bit of a gamble. I feel like now's the time where Liquid, they finally got to figure it out, you know, or they're not, you know. So wasting a 3-0 spot on them, you know, which you're unlikely to hit anyway. I think there's a world where Liquid does that.
Yeah.
The hardest game they'll probably have, you know, on their way to a 3-0 is versus Na'Vi, and I think Na'Vi is on the cusp of, like, if we describe FaZe as a team who just, don't necessarily want to play with each other anymore, I feel like Na'Vi is the same thing. I would be highly surprised if Na'Vi comes in and all of a sudden,
in English, we have a saying for a type of team like that, Pimp. It's called Last Chance Saloon, because there are certain players in that team. Look, GL retired. That's mad. I assume he's going to come back after the sabbatical. But there are players in that team where if you get booted from Na'Vi, bro, you're probably not going to a Na'Vi team after this. You are going to be in GamerLegion or fucking OG or something. A bit like you were saying about FaZe, bro, that you can see it on their faces. Like, you can tell that they know that. And I'll tell you what, I know a little bit about Blade over the years, and I've had the privilege to talk to him privately. Or publicly, he'll say the right things, mate. He's quite professional publicly. Mate, he's not a loser. He will cut people if he really believes they cannot work in the team. If he thinks you cannot play the responsibilities he has given you and allow him to get to championship level CS, he'll stick with you for a while when he needs to, or if he thinks there's more to try. But as soon as he doesn't think anymore, I guarantee he will. So I do think if they don't do a deep run here, I don't think you'll ever see this 5-man roster of Na'Vi again. I think you might even have 2 changes. Who knows?
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I think it's more than one player. I feel like it's been going on for too long, So I don't really have too high expectations of Na'Vi, which is why I think Liquid can go 3-0. I think Liquid, can beat Na'Vi and be the 3-0 team, because obviously you'd say Aurora and Na'Vi are on paper two of the favorites to go 3-0. Yes. I also do think Aurora will go 3-0. I feel like that's a team who they've done so much grinding and so much online stuff. People forget that, in the beginning of 25, that was the first time they actually did good results. So they had to stop playing qualifiers and stop playing all these best of 1 games that they never really play anymore, but they're kind of used to it, from back in the day. So I don't think that's too big an issue for them to survive. So yeah, I think, the obvious doing well would be Aurora, Liquid. And as I said before, I honestly think that FaZe will make it, and that's crazy because they just have enough individual fire. But like we saw it, Frozen can carry a game by himself. Like Frozen, and I know one thing is carrying a game versus Red Candidates, but that was also FaZe playing the worst possible Counter-Strike they could play. And I expect them to be slightly better. And if that's the case and Frozen is playing well, then they'll beat teams like MIBR. They'll probably beat Bait in a best of 3 when it's 2-2, or beat M80.
And by the way, their opening match is Passion UA. That's almost like perfect. In English, we say that's just what the doctor ordered. That's your little tonic pick-me-up, innit? Yeah.
They just lost to Aesthetic at Dracula and finished third or whatnot, so that's not a team I have either.
Yes.
So, you know what? The worst part is when you look at stage 1, like I even spoke with Freya about that, like I could see a world, had it not been for MIBR, but I could see a world where none of the stage 1 teams would make it to stage 3. Not a single one of them would make it to stage 3. Like I can make the case for every team not being good enough to be part of stage 3. And that is, that to me was the resounding, okay, you're not wrong. The level of Counter-Strike in stage 1 was not satisfying. It wasn't great. And for the fact that I can say that I don't really think any of them can beat Astralis in a best of 3 game or beat 3D Max in that's not a team you should be able to beat, but I don't see it happening. Best possibility is to me is FlyQuest and FaZe Clan. Apart from that, I don't really see any of those teams making it.
No, I know what you mean, because, like, for example, I have the exact same feeling about 3D Max. Normally, in a full like, if you put all the stage 1 teams in and do, like, a Cologne, basically, I'd tell you, like, 3D Max has to, like, upset people and be fluky. Mate, in this group, they will actually gatekeep people out of the fucking stage 3, because when I looked at them, right, the problem with 3D Max is this. They play Nuke and Inferno, and because they're French, they play just 2 if they have to. Those are the 3 maps, right? If they can get 2 of Nuke and Inferno in the 3 maps, they can beat any of these teams, mate. Except maybe like Aurora or something. Like, if you go and look, all these other... and here's the sad thing. When I ran the vetoes for most of the teams, most teams are not going to be able to actually out-veto them. So as a result, if you have a look, that's a team that actually tricks people, because the stats aren't particularly good for any player on that team, mate. They're very average, but I tell you what, they're like all a 1.0 or something team. But if you ever watch, I always tell people, here's why on low key I'm sort of like a fan, but spiritually not really like of the game that they play. It's not the most entertaining CS, but I tell people, to me they're like a CSGO team playing CS2. Like, they're trying to do tactics and stuff, bro, and have like, they're not trying to be like, you frag super hard and I just set you up and you go kill. It's like, no, they're trying to like actually like fucking... Look, they've only got a few maps it works on, but if they can match the right teams, and none of these teams mainly that we're talking about have got crazy firepower to go up against them, except like Aurora and Liquid and a couple of teams. I agree. If you go down the list, mate, I know at different times Tyloo had that one Fisher playground. You go down, you've got teams like... Well, the joke is FlyQuest probably think they can do it because of that 3-0, but they're probably frauds. Paravision's riding high off it all. FaZe themselves even could lose to that team, mate. I think a lot of these teams can lose to 3D Max. I actually would predict they would.
Yeah, I agree. I also have like 3D Max is my first team, in my pick'ems, outside of the
Yeah, I have them as well, mate.
I'm quite certain they'll make it. I'm just not sure in what fashion. But yeah, it's I don't know. What excites me the most about stage 2 is that I feel like I know what I'm getting from the stage 1 teams. Like I kind of, obviously I'm open to being surprised. FlyQuest, maybe you are
Sure.
good enough to make it to stage 3. M80, maybe you're good enough to make it to stage 3. Like I'm open to that. NIP even. Like I think NIP was hard done by the fact that they lost to
Absolutely.
NIG in that opening best of
Yep.
one. But apart from that, they
They were
probably
good
looked
after
like one
that,
of the
mate.
better playing teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were. And I also do believe, that Snappy is a great in-game leader. I think
Yep.
Kaspersky is a great individual, and I think Shoes is severely underrated still. So I do believe that NIP has what it takes to be in contention. But I kind of know what I'm getting from all the stage 1 teams. Like the most exciting thing to me is if I'm spotting any team, who's potentially a major dark horse. Like if we see Liquid go 3-0, playing good Counter-Strike, winning a
Yes.
best of 3 against Navi, like is that a sign that not only do they make it to stage 3, but we have to consider them for the playoff?
Yes.
Same for Aurora. Like if they scroll through this, iteration of stage 2, if they just look like a team that is far superior to everyone else, like do we have to consider them maybe as a semi-finalist for the
Yeah,
major,
yeah.
like a playoff guarantee? Like that's kind of what I'm
Yes.
interested in finding out here in stage 2.
Yes.
I don't care about FaZe. I don't care about Navi per se. Even if Navi were to go 3-0, I'm like, we've seen so many times that, one game that doesn't go their way or one map that doesn't go their way, and all of the players are just instantly hating each other or slamming desk and losing it. And like, I've lost belief in that. Same for FaZe, even if they play better Counter-Strike here, like whenever they face Falcons, whenever they face Vitality, whenever they face Furia, like they'll get smacked. Like there's no way they beat them in a best of 3 as it is right now. So I'm curious to learn about the teams I haven't seen yet, and the teams that could be, interesting conversation points for not only stage 3 but also making the playoff. And to me, that's Liquid. It's Aurora, and it is potentially, and I'm saying this with a grain of salt, it's
Go on.
potentially as well Astralis in a sense. And I've heard
Yeah,
that
no,
the
that's
track
true. I
is
think
going
I
well.
even picked Astralis as one of my teams, mate. By the way,
Yeah, exactly.
Astralis, on the one map of Nuke, they can beat most of these teams, mate. They
Yeah,
really can.
yeah, they can, and they're not. I don't know. They've had time now to practice and come into the event, and I'm
True.
just curious, as a Dane, also, seeing the new structure of Astralis, new ownership, yada yada yada. Nobody knows what's going on with Stown. I think Magisk is playing to keep his career alive, and Device is playing to still be relevant at a high. Like I think there should be enough motivation for them to do well and actually try hard enough for them to be a decent team here. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoff, but I do think they'll make stage 3. But that's what I'm curious to see. Like I have a lot of question marks attached to a lot of teams, but there's also a lot of teams where I don't care. So it's the question mark teams that I want to see play and want to see how they kind of fare in stage 2.
No, I know what you mean. Like, for example, on the top teams, those big 3, I know what you mean. I'm more using this as a form guide. I think they should all make it through. Like, it'd be a massive failure if any of Aurora and Navi or TL fuck it up. Like, I actually think it should be impossible if you're actually a legit team who has any aspirations of the playoffs. But I know what you mean. I'm gonna use this more to think how hot are they going to be, because I do think this is why, because people know the new formula of the pick'ems means you get punished hard if you don't get the 3-0, because very likely that team still goes through. But now you've burned 2 spots. You miss your 3-0 and that one. It makes people too scared to put like the best teams there, because like, fuck, what if they're all... The problem is, if Aurora actually wake up, as we say in England, on the right side of the bed, they'll smash anyone in this thing. They should 3-0 and just stomp all over everyone's head. And I'm with you. If they do that, I'm not looking at this stage. I'm looking at, bro, maybe you can make the run in the playoffs. Like, maybe you can catch like a G2, like we even said, maybe even a Furia type team in the quarters, and you can make that run, and you can actually be really hot for the tournament. The Liquid ones, obviously, like I said, this is why they're the analyst's curse, bro, because we can't look at that roster and give up on them, especially because here's the true copium. It's because technically that exact 5-man lineup hasn't actually played that many tournaments. It's just because they had twists before instead of Elise, so it feels like this squad played before. The coaches knew. Elise only just came recently, and by the way, he actually even looked a bit not that well integrated initially, so I just look, and then obviously the guy we've pointed out in past episodes, mate, if Nerds ever just remembers that he's Nerds, this team could fucking bang, mate. This team, I know what you mean. This team should be thinking of, we should be thinking of making the playoffs. That should be really plausible. Forget stage 1. Success for us is, it has to be the playoffs. We have to make the playoffs in this major.
Yeah, I agree. I think Liquid is like, that's, we spoke about it in the earlier episode, right? I think Liquid to me is the big, perhaps, maybe they figure it out, And as you said, like with Elise, yeah, he didn't look great in the beginning, but I never expected, like, Elise needs time to be integrated into a lineup, and he needs time to feel comfortable, and the players around him needs time to feel comfortable as well. I know Neff can perform with Elise on the team. Like, Neff doesn't give a fuck whether Elise is maybe sometimes hard to play with or give small comments or whatnot. I don't know how Nerds is going to function with that. I don't know how Shu is going to function with that, but I guess they'll iron it out. I guess Elise have also matured a bit. And if that is the case, as you said, if Nerds is just... I don't need Nerds to be ends Nerds. I just need Nerds to be 80% of the Nerds that we know. Elise to be 90% of the Elise that we saw in Complexity. And I need Shuhei to be 70% of the caller he was in Mouse to begin. Like, they don't need to peak, all of them. They don't need to be at 100%. If they all play at 80, I think Liquid is good enough to make the playoff. Like, Liquid is good enough to make stage 3 without a doubt. But if they all do come together and if they all do peak, then Liquid is, as you said, like, they are a team that should be thinking of themselves as, listen, not only stage 2 should be easy for us, we have to make the playoff. Like, anything but a playoff would be a disappointment. Like, losing to G2 would be a disappointing. Losing to any other team out there, Pain Gaming. Imagine losing to Pain Gaming if you Team Liquid. That should be a disappointment. So I do think that is the big what if, and the biggest question mark I have. And I think we can see it early. Like, we get to see it not necessarily in the first 2 games. It could be they win a best of 1, they lose a best of 1, they go 1-1. The first best of 3, regardless of who they play, that's when we figure out, okay, what kind of Liquid showed up for this major. And I'm super, super interested in seeing that game. Whether that's at a 1-2 stage or 2-1 stage or in a 2-0 game, it doesn't really matter to me. I just want to see them play a best of 3 against a good team.
It's why, to close, I'll just say this. I had an edgy take when they did the Elite Twist swap. And I didn't just do it because historically I think Elite is better. I actually think right now Twist is better. But what I even said was, the weirdest thing about it is, I know Twist must be on some nostalgia shit, because I actually think if you look at the 2 squads, with him in both, I think Team Liquid was closer there. If you want to make the Falcons joke of one more player, Liquid's one more player from the top bit. FaZe is probably 2. Who even knows at this point in time? Like, you'd have to reconfigure the whole squads. And again, here's the last thing I'll say as well. FaZe look wrecked. Liquid, I think, know they're still working on it. And like they know they're good players. They know they can still make it. So, no, that's why I still hold out hope, bro. I feel like in next year, in the first season, all the people who've written this team off completely, I think they could get egg on their face. I think they're going to figure it out, mate.